They tell you love is blind. What they don't tell you is that sometimes love is also deaf, dumb, and a little bit drunk. That's the only explanation I have for how I ended up head over heels for Charlotte, the woman who could sweet-talk a vending machine into giving her a free snack. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm 40, moderately successful, and, until recently, thought I had a decent radar for people. Then Charlotte happened. We met at a friend's party, one of those events where everyone pretends to care about wine pairings but is really just trying to outbrag each other about their vacations. Charlotte walked in like she owned the place, wearing this emerald green dress that screamed, "I'm here to ruin lives, and you'll thank me for it." She was all smiles, witty comebacks, and just enough mystery to keep you leaning in. By the end of the night, I was hooked. "Give me your number," I said, trying to sound confident. She laughed, this low, melodic sound that made me forget how to breathe. "Only if you promise not to be boring," she teased. Spoiler alert, I kept my promise. The next few weeks were like something out of a rom-com: dinner dates, late-night conversations about dreams and goals, and stolen kisses under streetlights. She had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room, which, looking back, should have been my first red flag. But love, as I said, is blind, and maybe a little stupid. 2 months in, I was convinced she was the one. She had it all: beauty, brains, and a laugh that could disarm a missile. We started talking about the future, weekend trips, moving in together, maybe even a dog. It was all so perfect. Too perfect. Then came the night that cracked the illusion. I was at a bar, catching up with an old friend, Trevor. You know the type, perpetually tan, always has a story about this crazy thing that happened in Cabo. "So, what's new with you?" Trevor asked, taking a sip of his beer. "Well," I said, unable to hide the grin, "I've been seeing someone." "Charlotte." "Charlotte," he repeated, his brow furrowing. "Wait, is she the one who's dating that gym guy?" "I think I met her a few weeks ago." "Met her?" I said, my stomach tightening. "Yeah," Trevor said, scratching the back of his neck. "She's, kind of famous for keeping her options open, if you know what I mean." I laughed it off, but inside, my brain was doing cartwheels. Famous? Options? This was the woman who made me pancakes in the shape of hearts last weekend. Trevor left soon after, and I sat there nursing my drink, replaying every moment with Charlotte in my mind. Could it be true? By the time I got home, the seed of doubt had blossomed into a full-blown investigation. I wasn't ready to confront Charlotte, not yet. But if she thought she could outsmart me, she had another thing coming. Because love might be blind, but it doesn't stay that way forever. You ever feel like you're living in a detective movie? The kind where the main character starts noticing all the little clues they'd ignored before, and suddenly everything clicks? That was me. Only instead of a trench coat and a magnifying glass, I had a smartphone and a rapidly growing sense of betrayal. The night after Trevor's bombshell, I decided to do a little recon. Just to ease my mind. It started innocently enough. Charlotte's Instagram was a curated masterpiece of sunsets, lattes, and just the right amount of cleavage to keep her followers engaged. But the captions? Oh, those were where the story started to unravel. Dinner with someone special, 2 hearts, one post read, accompanied by a photo of a fancy steak. The problem? I don't eat steak. Interesting, I muttered, scrolling further. Another post, love when a man knows how to spoil a girl, clinking glasses. A hand, decidedly not mine, holding a glass of champagne. I leaned back, rubbing my temples. Either Charlotte had a clone, or she was pulling double duty. Over the next few days, I kept my cool around Charlotte, but inside, I was spiraling. She'd still text me goodnight with little heart emojis, still laugh at my jokes like I was the funniest guy alive. And maybe that's what pissed me off the most, how effortless it all seemed for her. One night, I decided to push a little. "So," I said casually over dinner, "Trevor mentioned he saw you at some gym recently. Do you work out there?" Her fork paused midair, but only for a second. Oh, yeah. I tried a class or two. Nothing serious. Smooth. Too smooth. The next morning, while she was busy with errands, I did something I'm not proud of. I swung by the gym. Hey, I said to the receptionist, flashing what I hoped was a charming smile. I'm trying to find out which trainer my girlfriend works with. Her name's Charlotte. The receptionist blinked at me, then grinned. Oh, Charlotte. She's popular around here. I think she's working with Darren, but she's always chatting with the guys. Lucky you. Lucky me, indeed. By the end of the week, I had a full picture. Charlotte wasn't just seeing Darren. She was seeing Darren, and probably Trevor, and possibly 2 other guys I couldn't yet confirm. She wasn't just dating, she was running a damn relationship pyramid scheme. Mike, my best friend and the only person I trusted with this mess, burst out laughing when I told him. She's like a romantic CEO, he said between gasps. Maximizing emotional investments with minimal effort. Not funny, I muttered, though I couldn't help but smirk. Mike leaned forward, eyes gleaming. So, what's the plan? You're not just gonna let her get away with this, right? No, I said, my voice firm. I'm not. The wheels in my head started turning. If Charlotte wanted to play games, I'd give her a finale she'd never forget. Step 1, gather evidence. Step 2, make her squirm. Step 3, end it on my terms. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that even the best con artists eventually get caught. You'd think catching someone red-handed would be satisfying, but for me, it was more like trying to piece together a puzzle where half the pieces were missing. Charlotte was good at what she did, too good. But if she thought she was untouchable, she was about to learn otherwise. The plan started simple: gather evidence and wait for the perfect moment to strike. My phone became a gallery of screenshots, texts, Instagram posts, even the stretching session Darren had so graciously documented. Then came the real challenge: convincing Darren and Trevor to join me. Trevor was easy. He had no loyalty to Charlotte and, honestly, seemed to enjoy the drama. Wait, he said, laughing as I explained the plan. You're telling me she's dating Darren and you at the same time? That's bold. Count me in. Darren, on the other hand, was a tougher sell. When I told him the truth, his reaction was a mix of disbelief and rage. She wouldn't do that, he said, shaking his head. She would, I replied, sliding my phone across the table. And she did. He stared at the evidence, his jaw tightening. After a long silence, he nodded. Fine. Let's do this. With my accomplices secured, I set the stage, a fancy rooftop dinner. Charlotte loved those special moments, so why not give her one last hurrah? I made the reservations under the pretense of celebrating our relationship milestone. She was thrilled. This is why I adore you, she said, kissing my cheek. You always know how to make me feel so special. Oh, Charlotte, if only you knew. The night before the dinner, I couldn't sleep. Not because I had second thoughts, no, those were long gone, but because I was anticipating the look on her face when the house of cards came crashing down. By the time the sun rose, I was ready. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant early, ensuring everything was set up. A private room, perfect for intimate conversations, or, in this case, public reckonings. Charlotte arrived first, looking radiant as ever in a red dress that could have stopped traffic. This is amazing, she said, taking my hand. I knew you'd plan something unforgettable. You have no idea, I replied with a tight smile. When Trevor and Darren walked in moments later, her smile faltered. Trevor? Darren, she asked, her voice wavering. They didn't answer, taking seats across from her instead. I poured myself a glass of wine, savoring the silence. Then I leaned forward, meeting her wide-eyed gaze. Charlotte, I said, my voice calm, let's talk about what makes a relationship special. Trust, loyalty, and honesty. Her face paled as realization set in. There's a special kind of tension in the air when someone realizes they've been caught. For Charlotte, it started as confusion, a slight tilt of her head and a nervous smile. But as the seconds ticked by, that smile crumbled, replaced by panic. "Trevor? Darren," she repeated, her voice shaky. What's going on?" I swirled my wine glass casually, enjoying the moment. "Oh, nothing too serious, Charlotte. Just a little gathering of people who thought they were the only ones in your life." Trevor leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Yeah, Charlotte. Care to explain why we're all here? Or do you need Mark to spell it out for you?" Her eyes darted between the three of us, her breathing quickening. I don't understand." "Oh, I think you do," Darren said, his tone sharp. "Mark showed us everything. The texts, the Instagram posts, the little dates you've been juggling." Charlotte tried to laugh it off, but it came out strained. "This is ridiculous. I don't owe anyone an explanation." "You don't?" I said, leaning forward. "You told me you loved me, Charlotte. You told them the same thing, didn't you?" The room went quiet as my words hung in the air. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Her confidence, her usual charm, it was gone. "You didn't even try to hide it," Trevor added, shaking his head. "Stretching with Darren at the gym, steak dinners with me, wine nights with Mark. You really thought none of us would notice?" "It wasn't like that," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." "Then what were you trying to do?" Darren asked, his tone bitter. Charlotte glanced at me, her eyes pleading. "Mark, you know me. You know I care about you." I held her gaze, my voice calm but firm. "No, Charlotte. You care about the attention, the gifts, the thrill of keeping us all on a string. That's not love. That's manipulation." She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't understand. I didn't mean for it to get so complicated. I didn't know how to choose." Trevor scoffed, rolling his eyes. "So you thought you'd just keep all of us? Real classy." Darren stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done. Charlotte, lose my number." As Darren walked out, Charlotte turned back to me, desperation etched across her face. "Mark," she whispered. "Please, don't do this. We can fix things." I stood, sliding the napkin off my lap and placing it on the table. "No, Charlotte. You broke this. And now, you get to live with the pieces." Trevor followed me as I walked out, leaving Charlotte sitting alone at the table, surrounded by the mess she'd created. As I walked out of the restaurant, the cold night air hit me like a splash of water, a strange mix of relief and exhaustion settling in. Behind me, Charlotte was left to clean up the wreckage of her carefully constructed web of lies. Trevor caught up to me a few steps down the street, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Man, that was brutal," he said, laughing. "You've got a flair for the dramatic." I smirked. She deserved every second of it. Darren, still visibly tense, joined us, muttering, "At least now we know." "I can't believe I let her fool me." "You're not alone," I said. "She's a professional. But now? She's got no one left to play." The next few days were a whirlwind of fallout. Words spread quickly through our mutual circles. Charlotte's charm, once her greatest weapon, was now her undoing. The story of the dinner party became a running joke, the night of the Charlotte Chronicles. I received a text from her not long after. "Mark, please, I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then, with a calm clarity I hadn't felt in weeks, I deleted it. No response. No closure. Because, frankly, she didn't deserve it. Trevor and I grabbed drinks later that week, and he couldn't resist bringing it up again. "You know she's going to spin this, right?" he said, taking a sip of his beer. "Let her try," I replied, shrugging. "I'm done with her games." He raised his glass. to being done with manipulators. To that, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. Life moved on surprisingly quickly after that. I threw myself into work, started hitting the gym more regularly, Darren's recommendation, ironically, and even joined a local trivia team with some old friends. One night, during a trivia match, I met someone new. Claire was smart, funny, and had a no-nonsense attitude that I found immediately refreshing. Ever been to a dinner party that ends with 3 guys confronting the same girl? I joked, half serious. She laughed, her eyes sparkling. Sounds like you've got stories. Oh, you have no idea, I replied, smiling. As I walked her home that night, I realized something important. Charlotte might have shaken my trust, but she hadn't broken it. I was still capable of moving on, of finding someone worth my time and effort. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Subscribe to never miss a new story and discover even more captivating tales.